In a French village known for its aggressive hornets since World War II, Michael Carter ignored the warnings about the massive nest in his attic for years. When he eventually contacted a specialist to remove it, the expert approached with confidence. However, as he inspected the structure more carefully, his expression abruptly turned pale. What he uncovered that day would change history forever. The village of Samuro sits peacefully in the heart of the French countryside, its aged stone houses and winding, narrow streets retaining the charm of a bygone era. Little has changed in its outward appearance over the decades, giving it an air of timeless serenity. Yet, beneath this peaceful facade, the small community has concealed an extraordinary secret for more than 80 years. A mystery that began quite unexpectedly with hornets. Since the days of World War II, Samuro has been infamous for a peculiar and persistent problem, an unusual presence of aggressive hornets. The stories have remained eerily consistent over the generations. Tales of enormous nests hidden in the eaves of old barns and attics, of swarms that attacked with an unsettling sense of purpose, as if guarding something far more than just their territory. Warnings about these insects have been passed down from one generation to the next, whispered to newcomers with a mix of caution and dread. Each retelling grew slightly more dramatic, the details more chilling, until the hornets became almost legendary in local folklore. Elderly villagers, their expressions darkening with the weight of memory, often recounted incidents of people who had unwittingly disturbed a nest. Some would cross themselves as they spoke of former neighbors who had suffered vicious stings, their voices lowering as they described the frantic rush to the hospital and the lingering scars, both physical and psychological, left behind. What made these hornets unique and why their presence in Samuro remained so enduring was a question few dared to voice. But for those who had spent their lives in the village, the answer was one best left unspoken, just like the nests themselves. When Michael Carter purchased his historic home near the Belgian border in 2013, he was immediately intrigued by the stories surrounding the old house. Locals spoke in hushed tones about peculiar happenings, and the previous owner, an elderly man with a serious demeanor, had been particularly insistent about one thing: never entering certain parts of the attic. He had gestured toward a dimly lit corner, claiming that a massive hornet's nest had been festering there for decades, untouched and undisturbed. Michael, a pragmatic city man unaccustomed to rural superstitions, had politely nodded, filing the warning away as little more than exaggerated folklore. After all, he reasoned, if the nest were truly that old, surely someone would have dealt with it long ago. For 9 years, he lived contentedly in his 1920s home, carefully restoring the ground floor and second story, while deliberately avoiding the attic's farthest reaches. Yet, a lingering sense of unease persisted. It wasn't so much the supposed hornets that unsettled him, but rather the way his elderly neighbor, Maurice, would react whenever Michael casually mentioned clearing out the attic. Maurice, a man not prone to dramatics, would simply shake his head, mutter something unintelligible under his breath, and change the subject. The reality might have stayed undiscovered forever if it weren't for a standard home inspection in the spring of 2022. As the inspector moved methodically through the property, checking for structural weaknesses and signs of wear, his flashlight beam swept across that infamous attic corner. Suddenly, he paused, his expression shifting to one of cautious concern. "Mr. Carter," he called down, his voice echoing slightly in the rafters, "there's something up here you're going to want to see." Michael climbed the ladder and peered into the attic's dim recesses. His breath caught as he finally laid eyes on the mysterious mass. It was enormous, grayish-brown, layered, and grotesquely intricate, stretching across the beams like something out of a nightmare. "You have a very large hornet's nest," the inspector went on. "This should definitely be handled by a professional." A wave of embarrassment washed over Michael. For nearly a decade, he had allowed vague warnings and old stories to dictate his decisions, leaving this part of his home untouched. Now, staring at the undeniable reality before him, he felt a renewed sense of resolve. It was time to put an end to the mystery and take control of his own house once and for all. After conducting extensive research and weighing his options carefully, Michael ultimately decided to seek out Francois Larue, a seasoned pest control specialist renowned for his expertise in handling particularly stubborn and unusual infestations. Over time, Larue had earned a strong reputation for solving cases that left others puzzled. Michael was optimistic that this case would be no different. If there was anyone capable of delivering a quick and efficient resolution, it was him. When Larue arrived the following week, he exuded the quiet confidence of a man who had seen and conquered just about every pest-related nightmare imaginable. His movements were purposeful, efficient, and devoid of hesitation, the mark of someone accustomed to dealing with crises head-on. However, he barely concealed his impatience as Michael dutifully recounted the eerie local legends surrounding the Hornets and the unsettling warnings he had received from concerned neighbors. "Don't worry," Larue assured him, tightening the straps of his protective gear with practiced ease. His tone was matter-of-fact, almost dismissive. "I've removed hundreds of nests, some far worse than what you're describing. This won't take long." With that, he climbed up into the attic, his steps quick and confident. Michael observed from below as the expert moved through the dimly lit space, his flashlight beam gliding over the wooden beams and layers of dusty insulation. But as Larue neared the shadowy mass clinging to the rafters, something shifted. The unwavering confidence he had displayed just moments before seemed to falter. He stopped mid-step, his sharp gaze narrowing in scrutiny as he examined the structure more closely. A faint crease appeared between his brows. Michael felt a prickle of unease as Larue leaned in, his inspection growing more deliberate, almost painstaking. Then, without warning, he did something that sent a chill down Michael's spine. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." Moving slowly, deliberately, Larue reached up and removed his protective mask. For the first time since his arrival, the seasoned specialist appeared visibly unsettled. His face had gone pale, his usual air of quiet confidence replaced by something bordering on alarm. It was an expression Michael had never seen on him before, and it sent a cold ripple of unease through his own chest. "Mr. Carter," he eventually called down, his voice wavering in a way that made Michael's stomach clench. "This is not a hornet's nest." He swallowed hard before continuing, his gaze fixed on the ominous formation above as if tearing his eyes away might somehow make it more real. There was a sharp breath, a pause heavy with realization. "You need to contact the Historical Society. Immediately." What Larue had uncovered was far more astonishing and infinitely more significant than any mere insect dwelling. From a distance, the structure had appeared to be nothing more than an oversized hornet's nest, seamlessly blending with the dusty wooden beams of the attic. It was the kind of thing one might glance at and immediately dismiss, just another forgotten relic of time and neglect. But up close, the illusion unraveled. This was no ordinary construction of paper and wax. It was something else entirely. A cleverly hidden cache, crafted with meticulous precision to deceive even the most watchful eye. Years of experience had trained Laru to notice irregularities where others saw nothing. He had developed an almost instinctive ability to sense when something was out of place, when a detail was just slightly wrong. And here, something was definitely wrong. The texture was subtly off, too uniform, too deliberate. The way the layers had formed was unnatural, unlike anything real Hornets would ever construct. And then there was the scent. As he leaned in, expecting the sharp, organic musk of an active nest, he instead caught the faint, unmistakable aroma of aged parchment and oilcloth. An old-world scent, out of place in an attic where time had otherwise stood still. With extreme care, he extended his hand and started to remove the outer layers. What he discovered underneath was truly astonishing. Sheet after sheet of yellowed wax paper emerged from the false nest, each one preserved in a state of remarkable integrity, thanks to the attic's dry, undisturbed conditions. And then, beneath those delicate layers, lay a hidden collection of artifacts, objects that time had long since forgotten, but had, against all odds, remained intact. Stacks of medical supplies, some still sealed in their original military packaging, glass bottles of penicillin, their labels worn but still legible, rolls of sterile bandages, crisp and untouched as the day they had been packed, an array of meticulously preserved surgical instruments, their steel catching the dim attic light with a dull, ghostly gleam. But at the very heart of the false nest, wrapped in layers of protective oilcloth as if it contained something of immeasurable importance, rested the most significant find of all, a small, leather-bound journal. Its cover, though cracked with age, still bore the imprint of careful craftsmanship. The spine had softened with time, the edges curled from decades of being hidden away. Inside, the pages were filled with precise, deliberate handwriting, an account of a time long past, yet never truly lost. The journal had belonged to Dr. Pierre Dubois, the village doctor during the German occupation in World War II. As Laru and Michael carefully turned the fragile pages, an extraordinary story unfolded before them, one that would finally explain why, for decades, the village of Samuro had maintained its eerie reputation for aggressive, untouchable hornets. Dr. Dubois had not merely been a physician, he had been a strategist, a quiet mastermind of deception. In a time when survival depended on cunning as much as courage, he had devised a method to safeguard the village's most critical medical supplies, not by hiding them where they would never be found, but by disguising them in plain sight. By tapping into the primal fears of his occupiers, he had created something brilliant, something terrifying, something untouchable. And now, after all these years, his secret had finally come to light. He had constructed these false nests, intricately designed to mimic real hornet dwellings, knowing that no soldier, no matter how thorough, would dare disturb them. But his plan went beyond mere concealment. To reinforce the illusion, Dubois had carefully cultivated Samuro's reputation. He ensured that the German soldiers stationed in the area frequently heard exaggerated stories of vicious hornet attacks. When opportunity allowed, he even treated enemy officers for fabricated stings, skillfully documenting the cases in his medical records to lend them authenticity. Before long, the mere sight of a hornet's nest, whether real or not, was enough to make any patrol avoid the area, unknowingly safeguarding the hidden caches scattered throughout the village. His journal detailed the full extent of his operation, including how resistance members could locate the supply caches. The markings were subtle. Small notches carved into the beams of barns, tiny scuffs in the door frames of homes, scratches that seemed accidental but held coded messages for those who knew what to look for. These markers allowed the local resistance and stranded Allied airmen to safely retrieve life-saving supplies without raising suspicion. With each page, the depth of Dr. Dubois' brilliance became more apparent. He had woven an underground medical network into the fabric of everyday village life, turning ordinary homes, sheds, and attics into secret aid stations. Even under the watchful eye of the occupation forces, he had continued his work, treating wounded partisans and downed pilots, all while maintaining the outward appearance of a loyal village doctor. The last entry in the journal, penned just days after the liberation, sent a shiver down Michael's spine as he read it aloud. "The Hornets have protected us well. They never need to do so again." Michael and LaRue quickly realized that the discovery in the attic was just the beginning. Over the following months, 3 more false nests were uncovered in other buildings around Samaro, each one perfectly preserved, each filled with medical supplies that had been hidden away for more than 80 years. The local historical society meticulously cataloged the findings, piecing together a remarkable story of resistance, ingenuity, and courage. Today, one of these reconstructed nests holds a place of honor in the village museum, standing as a silent testament to the bravery of those who fought without weapons, using only their wits and an understanding of human nature. The preserved medical supplies, the documents, and most importantly, Dr. Dubois' journal have become priceless artifacts. They reveal insights into a secret network that had once rescued countless lives. But perhaps the most astonishing legacy of all was how thoroughly Dubois' deception had endured. The legend of Samaro's fearsome hornets had persisted for generations, passed down as local folklore. Parents warned their children. Neighbors cautioned newcomers. The entire village had unknowingly become the guardian of a secret long forgotten, until now. Michael Carter's historic home had been more than just a residence. It had been a crucial link in a chain of defiance, a place where silent acts of resistance had reshaped the fate of those who had found refuge within its walls. Did you enjoy this story? Have you ever solved a mystery on your own that no one else could figure out, just like Michael did? Tell us about it in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Who knows how many more mysteries are still waiting to be discovered? Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.